Far away in the cold darkness of the galaxy, the stars burned like silent witnesses of countless civilizations. Empires rose and fell among them, some so old that their origins had already turned into myth. To the great powers of the Galactic, community Earth was nothing. A small blue planet, hidden in the spiral arm of the Milky Way, was dismissed as a backwater. Primitive, unimportant, forgotten. But change was coming. It began quietly, without noise or warning. For the first time in history, the Council of Stars had received a strange transmission. It was not a message of peace, not a declaration of war. It was a signal filled with music. Human music. Soft voices and thunderous instruments woven together, in ways no alien had ever imagined. The council chambers, usually filled with cold debates, fell silent. For several long minutes, they only listened. Something in that sound shook them, something raw and alive. The elder races laughed at first. To them, humans were barely beyond primitive tools. Their ships were slow, their weapons were weak, their lifespan was short. What could such a fragile species offer to the stars? Backwater world, they said. Let them sing to themselves. Changes nothing. But not everyone agreed. Among the Varen observers, a young strategist named Kale watched Earth closely. He studied their history, their wars, their desperate survival. To him, the humans were not weak. They were unpredictable. Dangerous in ways the Council could not see. He read about their endless conflicts, wars fought not for resources alone, but for ideas, for pride, for freedom. Other species wasted so much for something unseen. Kale whispered to himself, they will not stay hidden for long. On Earth, humanity was changing faster than ever. Within a single century, they had leaped from wooden ships on oceans to steel vessels crossing the stars. Their curiosity was restless, like fire that refused to die. Every challenge, every enemy, only made them stronger. Their world had been scarred by wars, yet from the ashes, they built greater machines, faster engines, sharper weapons. And behind their inventions stood a will that even the galaxy's giants could not understand. The first real encounter came quietly. A Varen patrol ship had drifted too close to Earth's outer colonies, curious to see the backwater. The humans did not wait. Without warning, 3 human ships locked onto it, engines burning bright like furious spears. They were smaller, weaker and untested, but they did not retreat. They surrounded the alien vessel, broadcasting a single message in rough galactic tongue. You are trespassing. Leave now. The Varen captain laughed. He thought these strange creatures had no power to challenge him. But then the humans fired. Not warning shots, direct hits. Crude missiles tore across the shields, shaking the mighty vessel. The humans should have fled after that, but they pressed harder, pushing their fragile ships beyond safe limits, willing to burn themselves if it meant victory. The captain felt a rare thing crawl into his chest: fear. He escaped, barely limping back to his fleet with half his ship in ruins. When the story reached the Council of Stars, many dismissed it as a lie. How could primitives damage a Varen warship? Impossible. Yet the wreckage did not lie. What frightened them most was not the attack itself, but the way humans had fought, with no hesitation, no pause, no fear of death. Kale, watching silently, whispered again, this is how it begins. Back on Earth, the people did not even realize what storm they had awakened. To them, it was only a small skirmish, a test of courage. But in the halls of the Council, the seed of fear had been planted. The galaxy had seen countless wars, countless empires, but never a species that fought as humans did, species that turned every weakness into strength. The stars had watched Earth as a backwater for too long. Now, for the first time, they would turn their gaze fully on humanity, some with curiosity, some with fear, and some with hatred. The humans did not know it yet, but their music, their courage, and their defiance had set fire to the galaxy. And fire, once lit, does not easily die. The galaxy was vast, filled with ancient powers who believed themselves unshakable. But as the first notes of human destiny echoed across the stars, one truth whispered through the void, a truth none could ignore. Humanity was coming. The galaxy had not been shaken like this for centuries. After the Varen incident, whispers spread through the trade lanes and military channels. A backwater world had struck a blow against one of the oldest fleets in known space. Many dismissed it as luck, a strange accident. But those who had seen humans fight spoke in hushed voices, as if saying too much would invite danger. The Council of Stars gathered once again. In their towering chambers, representatives of dozens of species argued. Some demanded that Earth be punished before it grew any bolder. Others laughed and said there was nothing to fear. Humans, they claimed, were children playing with fire. Fire burned bright, yes, but always died quickly. But Kale, the young Varan strategist, spoke carefully. His voice carried none of the arrogance of his elders. "You are all blind," he said. "These humans are not like us. They fight with something we cannot measure. Not just for survival, but for meaning. For them, defeat is never the end. It is only the beginning of another war." Few listened. The galaxy was old, and old empires rarely believed new dangers could rise from the edges. Meanwhile, humanity was busy building. On Earth and across their colonies, the skirmish with the Varens had awakened something deep. The news spread among them like wildfire. For the first time, humans had stood against a galactic power, and they had not been crushed. Pride filled their voices. Songs were written about the battle. Children repeated the names of the pilots who had dared to fight. And somewhere, in the shadows of their governments, secret councils began to prepare for what might come. They knew the galaxy would not ignore them now. In a hidden facility on the moon, engineers worked night and day. Their hands were rough, their tools not as advanced as alien tech, but their determination burned hotter than plasma. They studied the fragments of Varen wreckage left from the battle. Every circuit, every shard of alloy, every piece of unknown technology was pulled apart and remade. Humans were not afraid to copy, to learn, to steal knowledge from those who thought themselves superior. And within months, ships were being rebuilt, faster, sharper, stronger than anything they had flown before. But power always attracts eyes. The first spy ship came silently. It was a slender craft from the Iraq, Dominion, a species known for its cruelty. They had heard of Earth's boldness and wanted to see for themselves. The ship cloaked itself in shadows and entered orbit, watching the humans like hunters studying prey. Its captain sent messages back to his Dominion. They are reckless. Their ships are fragile, but they are spreading too fast. If they're not stopped, they will infect the stars with their fire. The Iraq prepared to strike far below on Earth's surface. Life continued almost normally. People worked, built, dreamed of space, but among the military alarms had been raised. They had detected something in Echo, a shadow moving where no star should flicker. The humans could not see the spy ship clearly, but they felt it. Their instincts screamed of danger. One night, in the deep silence of orbit, 3 human vessels rose to meet the shadow. Their engines flared, cutting across the black. They did not send greetings. They did not wait. They hunted the Iraq. Captain was startled. How had these primitives detected him? His ship tried to flee, but the humans did not let go. They chased with relentless speed, pushing their engines to the edge of destruction. The fight was brutal. The Iraq vessel was faster, its weapons more advanced. But the humans fought differently. They did not retreat when damaged. They did not hide when outgunned. They attacked again and again, each strike wilder than the last, as if pain only fueled their fury. When the Iraq ship finally exploded in fire, burning into the void, the humans cheered. They had won again. But what they did not know was that fragments of the destroyed vessel still drifted across the stars, carrying messages that had already been sent before the end. The Iraq Dominion now knew of Earth, and they were not laughing. In the Council of Stars, Kale listened as the reports came in. His face grew pale. "It is too late," he whispered. "The galaxy has noticed." Across human worlds, celebrations turned into determination. They knew war was coming. They did not know when or who would strike first, but they felt the weight of the stars turning against them. And yet, fear was not what spread through their hearts. It was excitement. For the first time, humanity felt like it belonged to the stars, and if the stars wanted a war, then humanity would give them one. The galaxy no longer ignored Earth. After the fall of the Iraq spy ship, silence spread across the stars. Every great empire, every hidden power, turned its gaze toward the small blue world that dared to fight back. A curiosity, to others, a threat, and to a few, a challenge that could not be left unanswered. It was the Dominion that moved first. The Iraq were proud, and pride could not forgive insult. In their history, no primitive race had ever destroyed one of their ships. They had crushed civilizations greater than Earth with fire and chains. And now, their leaders declared, the humans would be punished as an example to all. A fleet was assembled. Not a full armada, but more than enough to crush a backwater world. 10 warships, each larger than any human vessel, armed with weapons that had burned cities into dust across 100 systems. Their engines glowed red as they crossed the void, leaving shadows of fire behind them. On Earth, the warning came late. A scattered transmission picked up by deep-range scanners. It spoke of warships moving through the edge of human space, coming straight toward them. In secret bunkers and command centers, alarms began to scream. For the first time in their young history as starfarers, humans faced the reality of invasion. But instead of panic, something else filled them: defiance. In the military council, commanders spoke quickly, their voices sharp with urgency. They knew their ships were weaker, their weapons slower, their numbers too few. Yet not a single voice suggested surrender. "If they come for us," one admiral said, "then let them remember this day forever." The humans prepared everything. Fleets were gathered from colonies, pilots called back from leave, engines pushed beyond safe limits. Scientists worked without rest, turning fragments of alien wreckage into weapons that had never been tested in real battle. Civilians, too, played their part building, carrying, supplying, because in this war, no one was untouched. Then the day came. The Iraq fleet entered human space. 10 massive warships glided like predators, their hulls dark and cruel, their weapons glowing like the eyes of beasts. At their head stood the flagship, the Bloodfang, its captain eager to deliver destruction. He believed it would be quick, clean victory, a warning to the rest of the galaxy. But the humans were waiting. From the black of space, dozens of human ships rose, smaller, weaker, but burning with something the Iraq could not understand. They did not hide. They did not flee. They moved straight into the path of giants. Like wolves baring their teeth against lions, the battle began with fire. The first human ships were torn apart instantly, ripped into fragments by energy blasts that could melt through steel. But for every ship that fell, another rushed in to take its place. They did not scatter when the fleet commander ordered them to break formation. Instead, they closed in tighter, swarming the massive warships like wasps against a bear. The Iraq laughed at first. "Fools," their captain spat. "They throw themselves into death." But his smile began to fade. The humans did not fight to survive. They fought to win, even if it cost them everything. Their ships rammed through shields. Their weapons fired until their engines burned out. Some pilots even ejected their last warheads by hand, guiding them into enemy hulls with desperate final maneuvers. One by one, the great warships began to falter. The Bloodfang shook under a sudden impact. 3 human frigates had sacrificed themselves, tearing holes in its armor. Alarms filled the alien bridge, the captain's arrogance melting into fury. "Impossible," he roared. "They cannot win. They are primitives. But primitives should not have fought like this." Hours passed. Space became a graveyard of wreckage, drifting bodies, burning engines. Yet the humans did not stop. They fought long after their ships should have fallen. Even when their weapons failed, they rammed, they struck, they sacrificed, and then it happened. The last surviving Iraq ship, its hull torn and burning, tried to retreat. Its engines flared, desperate to escape back into the safety of Dominion. Space. But the humans chased it. Not with one ship, but with many. They would not let their enemy flee. They would not allow the galaxy to believe humanity could be attacked without consequence. The Iraq captain's final sight was a swarm of human vessels closing in, their engines blazing like falling stars. Then came the impact, and his ship was no more. Silence returned to space. Of the 10 warships, none remained. Humanity had paid dearly, half their fleet was gone, thousands of lives lost, but the impossible had been done. The Dominion had been defeated. The news spread across the stars faster than light, and the galaxy trembled. For the first time in living memory, a young race had stood against an empire and won. In the Council of Stars, voices rose in panic and awe. Some demanded humanity be destroyed before it grew even stronger. Others argued they should be studied, perhaps even allied with. And in the shadows, Kale, the Varen strategist, whispered a single truth. The age of humans has begun. Galaxy had watched in silence as the Dominion fleet burned. 10 warships gone, thousands of warriors dead, all by the hands of a species that should never have one. It was not only shocking, it was terrifying. The Council of Stars met in emergency session. Their chamber, usually calm, was now alive with chaos. Some representatives shouted for immediate war, demanding that humanity be erased before it grew. Too powerful. Others argued for caution. Never before had a young race turned the tide against an empire so quickly. If they were attacked recklessly, what if the same fire spread across the stars? And in the shadows of that great chamber, Kale listened. The young Varan strategist had warned them all, but few had believed. Now they whispered his words, remembering how he had predicted this rise. His people, proud and ancient, still laughed at the thought of humans as equals. But Kale knew better, could see the shape of the future forming, and it frightened him. Far away, on Earth, there was no silence either. Humanity celebrated their impossible victory, but it was not simple joy. Every street, every home carried the weight of loss. Families wept for sons and daughters who had given their lives in the battle. Graves were filled with heroes, and songs were sung in their memory. The people of Earth had learned the cost of war, but they also tasted the strength it brought. In hidden rooms, leaders met. They knew more enemies would come. If one empire had fallen to humanity, others would be tempted to test them. Earth needed allies, or at least information. They needed to know who watched them from the dark. It was then that the first envoys arrived. The humans had expected fleets or armies. Instead, small ships slipped into orbit, carrying diplomats, spies, and strangers with offers. Some came dressed in silver, their voices calm and polite. Others came cloaked, their faces hidden, their words sharp with secrets. They spoke of trade, of alliances, of weapons that could make humanity unstoppable. But humans had learned long ago that gifts were never free. The first to approach were the Thrin, a merchant species older than any human nation. Their envoy promised knowledge blueprints of advanced engines, weapons that could cut through fleets, medicine that could double lifespans. In exchange, they asked for something small: access to Earth's natural resources to harvest oceans, and forests that had taken millions of years to grow. The Human Council refused. The Thrin left in silence, but their eyes glittered with anger. Next came the Heralians, a soft-voiced race who called themselves peacekeepers. They spoke of balance, of how humanity's rise could disturb the order of the galaxy. "Let us guide you," they said. "We will protect you if you submit to our authority." To them, Earth was a child, needing discipline. But humans had never been good at kneeling. They refused again, and still others came. Spies hidden as traitors, agents pretending to be friends. They tried to bribe, to steal, to listen where they were not wanted, but humanity had grown clever. They remembered every betrayal of their own history, every empire that had once tried to chain them. And now, in this larger galaxy, they used the same sharp instincts. In secret, Earth began building alliances of its own. It's not with the great empires, but with the forgotten, Small colonies, minor species, outcasts who had been ignored by the council. These groups knew what it meant to be dismissed, to be called weak. When they saw humans rise, they saw hope. But not everyone was pleased. From the dark edge of space, another fleet moved. Not as large as the Dominions, but stronger, smarter, quieter. They were not coming to test humanity, were coming to crush it before the fire spread further. The council had not ordered this attack openly, but whispers had passed through the shadows. Some powerful hands had decided that humanity's destiny must end now, before it truly began. The humans sensed it. Their scanners picked up strange movements at the edge of their territory. The stars themselves seemed to flicker with warning. But this time, the humans were ready. They no longer waited for enemies to strike first, in the silence of a hidden bunker. The human council gave their order. If the galaxy wants to test us, the commander said, then we will show them what it means to challenge Earth. Ships rose once more, engines thundered, weapons gleamed. Humanity was no longer defending, they were preparing to strike. And as they moved, somewhere far away, Kale whispered to himself, a shadow of fear curling in his chest. They are learning. Too fast. Too fast. The galaxy had underestimated Earth once. They would not do it again. But still, in the secret halls of power, some believed humanity could be crushed if struck quickly, before their fire spread any further. And so, in the cold dark between stars, a fleet moved in silence. It was not as large as the Dominion's invasion, but it was deadlier. These ships were older, heavier, armed with weapons that had ended rebellions on dozens of worlds. They carried no banners, no colors, for this attack was not official. If they won, the council would call it justice. If they failed, the council would call it a mistake. The humans knew they were coming. Scanners from the colonies had picked up shadows moving at the edge of their territory, had strange signals, broken transmissions, flickers of power in empty space. The galaxy thought Earth. Blind, but the humans had learned to listen where others ignored. They read the signs, and they prepared. For weeks, hidden fleets gathered in silence, not in the open skies of Earth, but in asteroid belts and dark corners of space where no one thought to look. Engineers worked without rest, welding plates, testing engines, building weapons that were still experimental. The humans knew their ships were weaker, so they turned the battlefield itself into a weapon. They laid traps, mines hidden in drifting rocks, satellites disguised as debris waiting to unleash fire. They mapped every orbit, every angle, every star's shadow. Humanity had written the story of its own ambush, and then the enemy arrived. The fleet came. Without warning, their ships cutting across the void like blades. They did not announce themselves, did not offer demands. They came to destroy. The lead vessel locked its weapons on Earth's colonies, ready to burn them into dust. But before the first shot was fired, the trap was sprung. From the shadows of the asteroid belt, human ships ignited their engines all at once, dozens of them, rising like ghosts from the dark. Their weapons flared, missiles cutting through the silence. At the same time, mines hidden among the rocks detonated, tearing. Through the enemy's formation, the invading fleet staggered. Their captains shouted in shock, shields cracking, ships colliding, as fire spread across the black. This was not the easy hunt they had expected. This was a battlefield designed to kill them. The humans struck without mercy. Small frigates darted. Between the giant warships, moving faster than their guns could track, bombs were hurled at engines, torpedoes driven straight into weak points. Some ships sacrificed themselves, ramming enemy holes to open holes for their allies. The galaxy had thought humans reckless. Now they saw it was not recklessness. It was strategy born from centuries of fighting against impossible odds. Humanity did not fear sacrifice, because for them, death was not the end of the battle. It was fuel for the living. The enemy fleet fought back with fury. Their weapons cut human ships apart, sending fire and bodies spinning into the void. But every time a vessel fell, another rushed forward. The humans did not retreat, did not scatter. They pressed closer, tighter, until the battle was fought at point-blank range. where even the largest warships could not escape. The enemy commander realized too late. His fleet was not fighting soldiers. They were fighting survivors, predators, fighters who had been forged in endless wars on their own small world. He watched as his ships fell one by one, consumed by the fire of a species the galaxy had called weak. And then, silence. When the battle ended, the stars were littered with wreckage. Human ships drifted, many broken and burning, but still alive. The enemy fleet was gone, every vessel destroyed. Humanity had not only survived, they had won again. On Earth, when the news arrived, people did not cheer as before. This time, the celebration was quieter, heavier. They had defended themselves once more, but they had also learned a truth. The galaxy would never stop coming. Each victory only made their enemies more determined. In the Council of Stars, panic spread. Reports of the destruction were read aloud, and the chamber filled with fear. Some shouted that humanity must be destroyed with full force. Others argued it was too late, that every attempt only made them stronger, and in the shadows, Kale listened. His voice was soft, but it cut through the noise. They do not fight like us. They fight as if the universe itself is against them, and that makes them unstoppable. The fire of Earth had spread again, and the galaxy trembled. The galaxy had waited for humanity to fall. Twice they had come to crush the Backwater world, and twice they had been burned. Through the stars, but it was not peace. It was fear. Every empire, every faction, every council meeting carried the same question. What will the humans do next? For a time, Earth was quiet. Ships drifted among the colonies, repairs were made, new weapons built. To outsiders, it seemed, as if the humans were resting after battle. But inside hidden bunkers and deep space stations, plans were being written. Humanity had learned a lesson it was not enough to defend. The galaxy would never stop coming for them. If they wished to survive, they could not wait for the enemy at their doorstep. They would strike first. The order came in secret, not to the public, not to the children singing songs of victory, but to the captains of Earth's fleets. Single command: take the fight to them. The target was chosen carefully. Not one of the great empires, not a fortress world too strong to breach, instead a supply station deep in the territories of the Dominion. It was here that fuel, weapons, and soldiers were gathered before being sent across the galaxy. It was a heart that fed the beast. And if that heart was cut, the Dominion would bleed. The humans prepared quietly. No parades, no announcements. The fleet was smaller than before, patched together from what had survived past battles. Engines rattled, weapons were untested, but every pilot knew what this mission meant. For the first time in history, humanity was not fighting for survival. They were carrying war into the stars. They launched at night, silent against the black. No signals, no songs, no transmissions. It's only the hum of engines and the beating of hearts. Across the fleet, men and women looked out at the endless void, knowing they might never return. But there was no fear, only fire. Days passed as they traveled through the dark, slipping past patrols, hiding in asteroid fields, masking their engines in the glare of suns. The galaxy believed humans too loud, too wild to be subtle. Yet here they were, hunters in the shadows. At last, the Dominion station appeared. A massive structure, its steel arms stretching out like claws, surrounded by escorts and defense platforms. To most, it was untouchable. To humanity, it was a challenge. The attack began with silence. The first strike was not fire, but darkness. Human engineers had prepared a weapon of signals waves of interference, stolen from alien wreckage, reassembled with human stubbornness. When the pulse hit, the station's sensors went blind. For a moment, the Dominion saw nothing, and in that moment, humanity struck. Missiles streaked through the dark, tearing into defense towers. Frigates surged forward, guns blazing. Larger human ships rammed into escorts, locking them in close combat where size meant less than courage. Explosions rippled across the station, alarms echoing through its steel halls. The Dominion had not expected this. They had thought Earth would hide, would wait, would beg for peace. Instead, the Backwater world had carried war to their doorstep. The fighting was brutal. Human ships were torn apart, shredded by heavy guns, but even in death, they struck. Captains rammed the station itself, their burning vessels becoming weapons. Others ejected last missiles by hand, guiding them into weak points. The humans did not fight for escape. They fought to make the galaxy remember this day forever. And then came the moment no one had believed possible. The station cracked. One of its great arms broke free, spinning into the void in flames. Fuel lines ignited, fire racing across the structure. From orbit, it looked as if a star itself had exploded. The Dominion survivors screamed into their channels, calling for reinforcements. But reinforcements were too far, and the humans were already retreating. Not fleeing, but leaving after their strike was done. When the smoke cleared, the great station was gone. Humanity had destroyed it not in defense, but in attack. The news shook the galaxy. Never had a young race dared to strike at the heart of an empire. Never had they burned so bright. Some species whispered that the humans were mad. Others whispered they were unstoppable. But all agreed on one truth. Humanity was no longer just defending its world. Humanity was at war, back on Earth. When the fleet returned with fewer ships but blazing pride, the people did not weep only for the dead. They cheered, for their destiny had changed. No longer were they children hiding under the eyes of giants. They were giants now, rising from the shadows of a small blue planet, and in the Council of Stars. Kale's voice carried once more. They do not fight like us. They fight as if the universe itself belongs to them, and perhaps it does. The stars had never seen anything like it. A young species, barely a century into space travel, had struck at the heart of the Dominion and lived to tell the tale. The destruction of the great station echoed across the galaxy, spreading faster than light for the first time in ages. Ancient enemies spoke to each other not with threats but with fear. The Council of Stars called an emergency summit. The chamber was filled with voices from every empires that had once fought for dominance, that had crushed each other's fleets, that had sworn never to share power. But now, with Earth rising, they gathered under one roof. The Dominions. Ambassador slammed his fist against the table. They are vermin. They dare strike at us. This is not defense anymore. This is aggression. This is war. The Thrin merchants hissed, their silver eyes cold. Yes, war, but not just against you. They can burn your stations. What stops them from burning ours? Humanity is fire, and fire spreads. The Heralians, soft and calm as always, whispered. A warning. You are all blind if you do not see. They are not like the others. They will not stop. If we fight them one by one, we will all fall. A silence followed. Ancient rivals who had hated each other for centuries looked across the chamber and saw the same truth. Humanity could not be left alone. If they rose unchecked, they would not only defend themselves, they would conquer. And so, for the first time in living memory, the galaxy united. Fleets that had once warred now prepared to fly under the same banner. Resources were pooled, weapons were shared. Secrets once guarded were opened. An alliance of fear was born, forged not from trust, but from the shadow of humanity. The humans. of course, heard whispers of this. Spies and allies from the outer colonies carried news back to Earth. The leaders of humanity gathered, their faces grim. "They are coming," one commander said. "They will come together," another answered. "And when they do," the first added, "the real war begins." Earth did not panic. They had expected this. Victory had a cost, and that cost was always greater enemies. But instead of despair, humanity grew harder. Their fleets trained, their colonies built faster than ever. Factories thundered day and night, weapons rolling off assembly lines like rivers of steel. New ships, larger than anything humanity had ever flown, began to rise. But numbers alone would not save them, so the humans turned to what they had always relied on: their minds. They studied every fragment of alien wreckage, every signal stolen from the void, every scrap of technology brought back from battle. They learned faster than any species had a right to. Weapons that had taken the galaxy centuries to perfect. Humans twisted and rebuilt in months. Still, the enemy they faced was vast. Dozens of empires united not by love, but by fear. Fleets numbering in the thousands. Armies greater than the population of Earth itself. Against them stood a single species, fierce and determined, but small. The question was not whether humanity could win. The question was whether humanity could survive. The first signs came at the edges of human space. Patrol ships reported sightings of massive fleets, moving slowly, carefully, like predators surrounding prey. Communications were intercepted: orders of war, commands to converge on Earth's borders. The galaxy was closing in, but humanity did not wait. In secret plans were drawn. Not of surrender, not of peace, but of something far bolder. If the galaxy wanted war, then humanity would bring it to them in ways they could not expect. They would not only defend, they would not only strike back, they would break the alliance itself. For humanity had learned something from their own long history. Great alliances built on fear never lasted. All it took was one spark, one betrayal, one fracture. Even the strongest unity would collapse. And so, while fleets trained and weapons were readied, another war began. A silent one. Human agents moved through the galaxy, whispering into ears, spreading doubt. They played empires against each other, feeding lies, planting fears. Old hatreds began to stir again. Enemies who had sworn to fight together began to wonder if their allies might betray them first. The galaxy thought it was preparing to crush a backwater world, but humanity was preparing to tear the galaxy apart from the inside. And as the stars filled with fleets, as the engines of war thundered louder and louder, Kale stood alone on a balcony, staring at the sky. He had warned them. He had told them what was coming. But even he, with all his foresight, could not imagine the storm that was about to break. The war of humanity, he whispered, will not end the way anyone expects. The stars burned with war. From every corner of the galaxy, fleets converged. The greatest armada ever assembled: thousands of warships, millions of soldiers. Weapons forged from ages of conquest now turned toward a single target: Earth. The backwater world was no longer ignored. It was no longer dismissed. It was feared. The united fleets came together in silence, their banners shining in the void. Old enemies who had once slaughtered each other now flew side by side, bound by one purpose: to end humanity before it consumed them all. On Earth, the warning arrived. Satellites tracked the vast armada moving like a storm across the stars. Colonies sent desperate reports. Traders whispered of fleets blotting out suns. Humanity had never faced such numbers. No species ever had. Yet the humans did not bow, in bunkers and command halls. Leaders spoke not of surrender, but of defiance. They knew they could not outnumber the galaxy. They knew their fleets were smaller, their worlds fewer. But they also knew something the others had. Forgotten war was not only about numbers, war was about will, and humanity's will. It burned hotter than suns. The fleets of Earth rose. Every ship, From massive carriers to small frigates patched together with steel and hope, launched into the void. Civilians volunteered, engineers turned into gunners, miners into soldiers. For this war, every human heart became a weapon. Two armadas met at the edge of human space. The blackness of the void was filled with fire, engines blazing, weapons locked. For a moment, there was silence, the stillness before a storm. Then the storm broke. The galaxy struck first. Thousands of warships unleashed their fire, rivers of plasma and storms of missiles tearing through the void. Entire human squadrons were wiped out in seconds, ships burning into dust. The Alliance cheered, certain victory was near. But then the humans answered. From hidden fields, swarms of drones launched. From asteroid belts, mines exploded, tearing holes in enemy formations. Human ships darted through the chaos, smaller and faster, striking at weak points, vanishing into shadows. They did not fight for glory. They fought to bleed the giants dry. Battle raged for hours. The sky was filled with wreckage, with screams, with silence broken only by fire. The humans lost ships, many ships, but they did not falter. Each time a vessel fell, its crew fought until the last breath, turning their deaths into weapons, and slowly, impossibly, the great alliance began to break. Old hatreds rose again in the heat of war. Some fleets hesitated, unwilling to sacrifice themselves for rivals they had once despised. Others accused their allies of holding back. Whispers of betrayal spread across channels. Unity cracked. The cracks spread into fractures. The humans struck harder. A daring squadron of human ships dove straight into the heart of the Alliance Armada. Their mission was not to survive, it was to end the war. They carried a weapon, built from stolen alien tech, dangerous and unstable. As enemy fleets turned to destroy them, the humans activated it. A wave of energy tore through the void, not destroying ships, but blinding them, silencing their sensors, scattering their formations. For precious minutes, the Alliance could not see. And in those minutes, humanity unleashed hell. They struck everywhere at once, tearing through isolated fleets, burning enemy carriers, collapsing the careful order of the Armada into chaos. When the blinding wave faded, the Alliance saw only destruction. Their perfect unity was gone. Their fleets were scattered, their ships burning. And in the center of the storm, humanity still stood. The battle did not end in silence. It ended in fire. The last shots rang out across the stars, and then the galaxy fell quiet. The greatest armada ever assembled had failed. Against all odds, against all logic, humanity had survived. The galaxy trembled. Empires that had stood for thousands of years stared in disbelief at the reports. The Council of Stars fell into silence, unable to explain the impossible. And in that silence, one truth spread like a whisper through every world, every station. Every ship, the Backwater world had risen. Earth was no longer ignored, no longer dismissed, no longer weak. Humanity had proved itself not as survivors, not as rebels, but as a power that could not be broken in the ruins of the battlefield. As human ships drifted among the wreckage, voices rose across every channel. Not of fear, not of despair, but of pride. They spoke a message, simple and clear, to every star that listened. We are humanity. We do not kneel. And the galaxy, for the first time in ages, bowed its head in silence. For the age of humans had begun.